Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another week of the Triple Play Podcast. This is your host, Danielle Whaley, and today I am joined by Quinn Pilkey. It is his first show. Hello, Quinn.
Hello, Danielle. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
First-time caller. Nice to have you on the show. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
No.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's Quinn. Welcome to the show, Quinn. He is one of our staff writers for the Tennessee Journalist, making his debut this week on the Triple Play. Happy to have him. So let's just go ahead and dive right into the tough subject that not many people in Knoxville want to talk about. Tennessee's game against Alabama this weekend. What a time it was if you were a Bama fan. The Vols were toppled by the Tide on Saturday in front of a sold-out Neyland Stadium, 49-10. The Vols struggled all day to contain Alabama, which was strong on both sides of the ball, as most people predicted, since they are the number one team in the land. You're expecting to see good football from them. But one thing that has really surprised me looking at the stats was how Tennessee was outgained on total yardage, and it was ugly. 594 total yards for Alabama compared to 163 by Tennessee. If you're doing the math in your head and think that's a lot of math to do, I'll go ahead and give you the numbers. That's 431 yards and a differential between the two. 431 yards. Wow, that's insane. Breaking that down a little bit in terms of passing, it was pretty close between the two. Alabama had 156 passing yards while Tennessee had 131 passing yards. But over on the rushing side, not so pretty. 438 yards for Alabama. 438. How did Tennessee do? 32. Not 132. Nothing like that. 32 rushing yards. That's ridiculous. And in first downs, Bama had the upper hand on that one, 28 first downs compared to Tennessee's 11. So obviously a lot can be said about Tennessee's performance in this game in terms of the struggles that they've had and the issues that they were facing in this game, and with how good Alabama was, obviously. But how would you describe this game in 4 words or less, Quinn?
Oh, boy. I'm going to go with Alabama is very good.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. I worked hard on that.
I can tell. I think that's the obvious choice in terms of 4 words to use.
I'll also go with Tennessee is not good.
Okay.
No, was not good.
Was not good.
Yeah, that's better.
That's probably better.
Well, 400 something more yards than us? I think that's more yards than I have moved in my life.
Probably.
I'm a pretty static person.
Right.
Stagnant. No.
Sure. A lot of words that could be used. Yeah, 431 yard differential. That's unheard of. I think that's probably the biggest differential I've ever seen in a football game that I've been able to witness in person. That's just absolutely insane. For Tennessee, that's kind of like a dagger right to the heart of the team and even the fan base too. Looking at the stats as a fan, that hurts. I will be honest, I laughed out of pain. So trying to laugh through the pain was the toughest part. But it's just insane. I
laughed when Tennessee punted down 32 points in the fourth quarter and got what they deserved when they ran it back. Alabama ran it back. Because you should never punt down 32 points in the fourth quarter because you probably need to score, at that point.
It's true.
Getting down to the time where you don't want to be down 32.
Right. Yeah, that game was a lot. That was a lot to see, but you have to hand it to Alabama. They were the team that you expected to see. They were great on both sides of the ball. Like I said, their offense was insane. The rushing game, I don't know where Lane Kiffin was coming up with most of that play calling, but it was unreal. But for my 4 words, I'm going to go with can't win with injuries. Because, Tennessee is plagued with it right now, and Khalil McKenzie went down early in the game, and that definitely hurt the defense, helped Alabama out tremendously. But, with all of these injuries that Tennessee was facing in that game and facing going into that game, it's tough for them to be able to have a solid way of going about that game in their mind. You can't really go into a game feeling that confident with so many players out.
No, you can't. No, you can't. I was trying to find some silver lining there, but
there is no silver lining.
There is.
No, I think the only silver lining you can find is it's a good time for backup players to try to step up and find themselves on the field, but against the number one team in the nation, you're not going to have a good time.
No, and they did not have a good time.
No, not at all. It was a brutal game for Tennessee, but like I said, Alabama was fantastic. I would say another set of 4 words we could use, Jalen Hurts can run. He was insane.
I think you said Jalen Hurd.
No, Hurts. T.S.
Yes, he pretty quick guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was unreal in terms of stats for Alabama. I want to say he had 3 rushing touchdowns.
I think so. I remember at least 2.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. I know he's a good player, but I didn't expect him to be on that much on fire against this Tennessee team.
Definitely not, no. I thought the defensive line is the healthiest part of the Tennessee team, and they, even with Danny O'Brien and, like you said, Khalil McKenzie leaving early, still pretty strong part of the team. They, with the exception of Derek Barnett, were pretty bad in containing running from any Alabama players.
I'd agree with that. I just think it was brutal. That's the only way I can go about talking about this game. It was just insane to see. It was tough to watch. That's the only way to go about it. It was very tough to watch. But late in the game, this is something that most people have been talking about with this game. For Tennessee, they sent in Quentin Dormady to play in the fourth quarter. I want to say it was around 11 minutes left in the fourth. How did you feel about that move, bringing him in to replace Josh Dobbs?
I mean, I looked at it as just a way to keep Dobbs healthy and not risk him in a game that they had, at that point, pretty much given up on. But on that note, I was kind of confused why they put in Dormady and John Kelly, but leave in the starting receivers. So I wasn't entirely sure what was going on there. I thought Dormady was fine. I don't think there's going to be any quarterback controversies. As fun as that would be to have that in the middle of the season, I think it's pretty much just keeping Dobbs safe. And
I would agree with that. I thought, people around me in the stands, whenever Dormady went in, it was just like a sign of elation for the fans that were left, I should say. A lot of fans were leaving around my section.
I left after Dormady's first drive.
Oh, there you go.
I had a long walk back to the car. Just wasn't feeling it. So,
I think he came in. He did well. He had 2 completed passes out of 4 attempts. That seems
good,
pretty.
First throw, good one to Malone.
Yeah, getting down the field.
Longest play of the game. Tennessee's longest play of the game.
Probably. Honestly, who knows with the way Tennessee played.
Rough.
It was very rough. He had 39 passing yards, but looking over at Dobbs, it's hard to look at his stat line because you know how much he struggled. 16 completions on 27 attempts for 92 yards, no touchdowns with an interception. That's a crazy stat line.
Interception.
It really
on
was.
A screen pass, which incredible, really.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at this game, it's tough to find a lot of silver linings for this Tennessee team. It was the toughest game they've had to date, and you have to really take into account the games that led up to this between Florida, Texas A&M, Georgia as well. Those were tough games for the Vols. So finishing out that 4-game stand with 2 losses, you could say that going 2-2 in that 4-game span was okay. It was a tough road, but the spread for this game was so low as well, and it just became a nightmare.
I was so confident that Tennessee was going to.
I thought they were going to cover.
Yeah, definitely.
I picked them to cover, and it's heartbreaking.
As well, and I told someone earlier in the day that I would be shocked if they did not cover, and they didn't.
Right.
They did not cover, and I was shocked.
Yeah. It was brutal. That's the only way to go about it. But looking at the game, who would you have to pick for your offensive and defensive stars of the game?
I think Mike DeBoer really stole the show on offense. No, I don't. Kamara maybe scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
Offense, I don't really have much.
I agree. It's tough to find someone on offense. But what about defense? There's a little bit more you can work with.
Derek Barnett, for sure, I think. Although Shy Tuttle had a great bat down, played pretty as well as anyone.
That's true.
But Derek Barnett, forced fumble, interception, and continuing to play just wonderfully for Tennessee.
Yeah. I'd say that's a good pick. For me on offense, Usually I try to find Tennessee players to pick on this one, but I picked Jalen Hurts for Alabama. I hate to do that for my offensive defensive players of the game, but to be honest, he was the offensive player of the game. He was probably the player of the game for the entire game itself.
You're a traitor.
I'm not a traitor. I tell it like it is. If you look at his stat line, in terms of passing, he was 16 for 26 for 143 yards, no touchdowns, but with 1 interception. And in terms of rushing, he was unreal. He led for Alabama. He had 12 carries, just 12 carries, mind you, for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns. His longest rush was 45 yards. That's unreal.
That's incredible. That's just amazing, fantastic.
It is. He blew Tennessee out of the water.
Absolutely.
The defense couldn't contain him. It was his show. He took over Neyland. That's the only way to really look at it. But in terms of defense, I picked Todd Kelly Jr. as my player of the game. I was very impressed by him. He had 11 total tackles. 7 of those were solo tackles. And I think this was a big game for him to step up in. He talked earlier in the week about how his sister went to Alabama. So, he was really trying his hardest to make sure that this team could contain Alabama because of that little family rivalry. But I think he did very well. He stepped up in adversity. It was great for him, but we're used to seeing him really stepping up whenever he needs to. But it was a tough day for the defense overall. It seemed like they were always on the field. It was just brutal.
Just, 10 punts on the day?
I want to say something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and for Tennessee, and it was ugly.
It was
very ugly.
That's the only word you can really use to describe this game. But, it sent Tennessee down in the AP rankings. We'll talk about that in a bit. It was quite a brutal drop for Tennessee for this season, but it puts them at 5-2 overall in the season, 2-2 in the SEC as they head into the bye week. And I don't think Tennessee fans have ever been more excited to see a bye week happen for a team. A lot of people were talking about how this bye week should have happened before the Alabama game. And if that could have happened, could we have seen a different outcome with this game? Maybe.
The score probably would have been closer. I don't know if Tennessee could have won, but I think it would have helped probably.
True. I think it would have given them some leverage in terms of trying to get past the injuries that they are going through. Because like I said, that's what's plaguing this team right now. You can't win games with these types of injuries. They were able to do it for a while, but it's just like more and more players keep going down. So, this bye week could be this could be like a miracle time for Tennessee. This could be a time for them to really just rest and focus on making sure that players can be at their full potential. So usually for our segment with the winning edge, we talk about the upcoming game for the Vols, but since it is a bye week, we're going to do a little bit of a reflection this time. So what would you say has been the winning edge for Tennessee up until this point?
Well, I've talked about it a lot, but I think just honestly, the luck they've had, especially recovering fumbles, was huge when they played bad games, but recovered a lot of fumbles, and that helped them win the first couple of games. And then we saw against Texas A&M, they played pretty well, but had 7 turnovers, 5 lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, I believe, and Alabama didn't have many issues with the fumbling, but just got destroyed by a much better team.
Sure.
So I think Tennessee's yet to put in a full game where you come out watching thinking, wow, that was the best game they can play. And I think their luck on recovering fumbles for the first half of the season really carried them through for the most part.
Sure. I think a lot of people would say that the luck Tennessee has really been the deciding factor, because we talked, I know a lot of people were talking last week about the magic finally running out for this Tennessee team. That was kind of just the storyline between last week and this week. But for me, whenever I was looking at this and trying to come up with an answer, I kept thinking about General Neyland's game maxims. And the second maxim kept jumping into my head. It says, play for and make the breaks, and when one comes your way, score. And I feel like Tennessee has found ways to get to those breaks, kind of like what you said with the luck. I think it's just sometimes they will overlook those breaks whenever it's there, but whenever they find those breaks, they capitalize on it. And I think that's really helped this team, especially with so many players being hurt. That's not easy to play through. And, you also hit the nail on the head by saying they haven't played a complete game, so you can't really look at the rest of the maxims to find where they've fulfilled those. It's been brutal for Tennessee. That's the only way to look at it. But that second maxim, I think that has really been the statement for Tennessee up until this point, and hopefully that'll be the statement heading after the bye week. I saw somewhere a stat that said Butch Jones has only had like 2 losses after a bye week in his career. I think that might just be here at Tennessee. I'm not completely sure. I need to go back and look at that, but it could be interesting for Tennessee. I mean, after the bye week, they are playing against South Carolina, Tennessee Tech for homecoming, Kentucky, Missouri, and then heading to Vanderbilt to close out the season. So, I mean, could they win out the rest?
They should win out the rest, probably, depending on who they get back and how everything goes there. But they should
That's
probably
true.
be winning every other game on the schedule now.
I agree. I mean, if I'm looking at the schedule, if there's a game that I'm kind of worried about, I mean, South Carolina going to Columbia is not easy.
Yeah,
Tennessee has gotten by there recently in overtime 2 years ago, which was ridiculous. Tennessee Tech, that should be a pretty easy game for Tennessee. Kentucky, that should be an easy win. Mizzou might be a little tougher. I mean, Mizzou is not the team they have been.
No, they could be tricky. They could trip Tennessee up, I think.
They definitely could. I mean, if Tennessee struggled against Appalachian State, anything's really possible.
Yeah, it's true. All of these teams
Exactly.
could present problems, but
I think that's true. And I mean, Vanderbilt, that should be an easy win for Tennessee. Should be. We'll see what happens with that one. But we'll talk more about the upcoming schedule once we get past this bye week. So no Tennessee football this week, but that'll give us time to focus on the rest of the SEC. So there are 8 teams in the SEC right now in the top 25 for the AP polls. And those teams are as follows: Alabama at number 1, Texas A&M at number 6, Florida at number 15, Arkansas number 17, Tennessee at 18, Auburn 21, Ole Miss 23, a huge drop by the Rebels there, and LSU making it into the top 25 at number 25. So what SEC game caught your eye this week, besides the Tennessee one, of course?
Georgia lost to Vanderbilt, which is pretty hilarious, I think. But Mississippi State went to BYU, which was odd, and they lost. But I think Arkansas Ole Miss was the...
Really?
I think so, yeah. Arkansas beating Ole Miss. It was good. Ole Miss is such a weird team.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on there, but that's pretty much everything that stood out.
Yeah. I looked at that game too because, I mean, Arkansas, I could have seen them upsetting Ole Miss. I looked at this game and thought that could be possible. Did I pick for it to happen? Don't believe so.
I do not think I did either.
Yeah, I don't think I did. But I mean, you're right. Ole Miss, this has been an interesting season for the Rebels. They're 3-3 right now, 1-2 in the SEC. Not really sure what's happening in Oxford. It's kind of an odd season, like you said.
Definitely.
But it's also been an odd season, but in a good way for Arkansas. They're 5-2, and I don't think many people really expected that to happen for an Arkansas team as of late.
Definitely not. No, and they lost their quarterback and running back from
Yeah,
last year?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, Arkansas is doing everything right as of now. I mean, they're looking like a strong team. Could we see them making a push towards the end of the season to get into contention for like a really good bowl game, potentially?
Probably, yeah, I think so. What are their 2 losses? So they're 5-2?
Yeah, they're 5-2. I want to say their 2 losses were against... Who was it? Texas? No, it wasn't Texas State. They won that one. I know that for sure. They lost to A&M, 45-24, and the other one was against Alabama.
Okay.
So I mean, those are 2 games you're gonna really think about them losing, since those are the 2 top teams in the SEC West right now. But I mean, Arkansas has really proved themselves this season.
Definitely. Tennessee fans probably glad we played them last year, and not.
I don't know.
Although,
Last year was a brutal game last year for Tennessee.
Yeah.
Maybe Tennessee fans weren't too excited about that. For my SEC game, I went with Vanderbilt and Georgia in Athens because that blew my mind. I picked Vanderbilt to cover the spread on that one and to win it. I had a feeling they could do it. Yes. So I was very surprised by that. And, this could have been an easy win for Georgia. I want to say it was homecoming.
It was, I
in
believe.
Athens.
That's what the buzz in the crowd around me was.
The
Tennessee game.
Mm-hmm. It was that was just an interesting game in general. Vanderbilt, I don't know how they did it, honestly. I'm truly baffled. I'm completely baffled. Yes, I picked them to win, but I kind of did it just thinking, well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But it was insane.
I don't know how Vanderbilt does anything that they do. But that's college football, I guess.
That's true. And I mean, we're halfway through the season as well, so things are just kind of rocking and rolling. It's just an odd season.
Definitely.
But looking ahead, in the SEC schedule, LSU and Florida decided this past week that they will make up their game that was postponed due to Hurricane Matthew a couple weeks ago, and that game's going to be played in Baton Rouge on November 19th. So this means that both teams will have to buy out their non-conference opponents for that weekend. I want to say it was going to be Florida against Presbyterian, I think.
Presbyterian.
And then South Alabama against LSU. Yeah, so interesting way for them to go about making sure that this game happens. But do you think that this will alter the outcome of the SEC in any certain way?
Probably. I think Florida's toughest opponent left on the schedule is LSU and Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. I think that's the game they have the highest chance of losing. Mm-hmm. And as far as LSU goes, I don't think that will affect them that much because I think they'll lose to Alabama. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think it'll affect them as much, but they have the chance to go to the SEC championship still. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more meaningful for Florida and all of the East and Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I just think this is very interesting because both teams will just have to play 11 games. Since they are canceling that game. So I think that could make it interesting in terms of the overall record between the two teams in terms of where they'll fall in the standings. But the division record is what matters with the SEC. So I think it's going to be very interesting for the East, like you said. I mean, I think there's more riding on this game with the East in mind because Florida's always in top contention. Right now they're leading the SEC East. So I know a lot of Tennessee fans are not that happy about
Florida
it.
Gators.
Yes, Quinn's Florida Gators. He is a Florida fan around here. But, it's I think it could cause some problems with the SEC East mainly. The West, I don't see it being too much of a problem since Alabama and Texas A&M are pretty much in the driver's seat there. But speaking of that, for our quick take segment real quick before we head into some different football talk, we're going to talk about the battle of the top teams in the SEC West this upcoming Saturday between Alabama and Texas A&M. So who wins this one?
Alabama.
Do you have a reason for it?
I'm scared to pick against them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think A&M's defense is very good at all. And I think Alabama will do a lot of the running over that they did to Tennessee to Texas A&M.
I could see that happening. I picked Alabama as well for the one reason I picked them is 2 words. Well, 3 words technically. Home field advantage. That's it.
It is 3 words.
It is 3 words. I was thinking it was hyphenated. I can't count. But
I can't read, so
Yeah. It's fine. But I just think they have the home field advantage. I think that's the only way around it.
That's definitely a major factor in the game.
Yeah, and it's tough to beat an Alabama team no matter where you play. But, it's just I think it could be a very strong game. I'm hoping for a close game. I would love to see an overtime between these two teams.
That would be fantastic.
I think it would be so much fun. A high-scoring overtime. I think it'll be really fun to watch. But Jalen Hurts,
Is that game at 3:30? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I want to say it is.
I assume it is.
I would assume it is. But, it should be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of plan out my Saturday now. So
Exactly. I want to say that's going to be a 3:30. Yeah, it'll be a 3:30 game. It should be on CBS since that is like the big game of the SEC
network.
Exactly. So the SEC, a lot of things are happening right now. It should be interesting to see how the season plays out heading into the rest of the season. But let's go over to the NFL really quick. Week 6 is coming to a close this week in the NFL, and it has been a crazy one, especially with injuries for different teams and certain teams playing stronger than most have seen them play this season. So what team or game stood out to you this week in the NFL?
I have 2 quick ones. Dallas, Green Bay. Dallas I think it was 30-16. absolutely ran over the Packers. I did not expect Dallas to be this good. I don't know if many people did. I have a friend who's a Cowboys fan who expected this, but, I mean, they always expect this.
Right.
I liked Dak Prescott, but I didn't think he would be this good as a rookie, and he has been very good so far. And Ezekiel Elliott behind that offensive line is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And the other game I picked was the Carolina Panthers. My preseason Super Bowl pick fell to 1-5, and it is not looking good for them.
No, this has been a really weird year for the Panthers. I mean, Cam Newton has been injured, which has really just rattled that team, honestly.
They are rattled.
They are very rattled. I mean, the Saints, too, haven't been the best team this season. I don't think that's something most NFL fans are used to because, a team with Drew Brees under center is usually a team that's going to do pretty well.
He's pretty good. He's a pretty good player.
He is. So, I mean, I think it's been an interesting season for the Panthers. I'm expecting a turnaround to happen for them sometime soon, but I mean...
I am too, but I'm thinking it might be too late to really get things going.
Especially since it is week 6 that's coming to a close. I mean, they should have already kind of had stuff moving and grooving for them. For me, the game that I watched this week that really stood out was the Browns versus the Titans. I know that seems like a game that shouldn't stand out to most people, but this was probably the best we've seen the Browns play this season. Granted, they are 0-6 now since they lost to the Titans, but it was a close game. And, I mean, the Titans really had to fight back to make sure they could contain this Browns team, and that's not a phrase I'm used to saying, containing this Browns team. That's just almost unheard of. But the Titans won 28-26. And despite being winless this season, the Browns, like I said, this was probably the strongest that I think anyone has seen them play this season. They really just were moving. They were moving the ball as well as they could have. They were scoring whenever they needed to, and just really stay in the game with the Titans. Granted, neither team is all that strong this season. I mean, the Titans have really struggled. Mariota's trying to finally find his place.
He played very well.
He did.
The Browns, but has still threw a couple of passes that are just not passes you can throw in the NFL, but
definitely not.
Still learning, hopefully, for Titans fans. He'll figure that out. And he's a fun player to watch, so hopefully for casual fans, he can figure it all out.
I think he will. I mean, he did have a good stat line. He was 17 for 24, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he was sacked twice. But in that same respect, you'd have to say that Cody Kessler for the Browns had a pretty impressive game. He did better than I think most people would have thought that he could have done with the Browns. He was 26 for 41 for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But here's where it hurts. 6 sacks for 36 yards. That's not going to help you really win a game.
No, that is not.
It was kind of what you expect to see with a Browns quarterback in terms of being sacked so many times. But for him to have those 336 yards, I think that could be a momentum changer for the Browns. Maybe they could try to turn things around and get a win coming up. The next game they play is against the Bengals, which is not going to be easy. The AFC North is not an easy division to play in.
Except for the Steelers, I mean, they're just rough. They are a bad football team.
The Steelers are struggling this season. They are not doing well at all. Ben Roethlisberger is going to be out with an injury. I want to say it was a meniscus.
Yeah, meniscus, I think.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Their next game is going to be against the Patriots. So for the AFC North, I mean, things are kind of odd there. The Steelers still are in the lead, I believe, in the AFC North. But, I mean, they're 4-2. Yeah, they're first in the AFC North. But things could be turning sour for them because they have the Patriots and then a bye week, I want to say, and then they play the Ravens. So it's going to be brutal for this Steelers team. But, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Browns, maybe they could be changing the tide a little bit once they get past the Bengals.
Danielle Whaley is picking the Browns to win the Super Bowl right now.
I wouldn't say I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl, but, a different Cleveland team could be winning a championship this season.
True.
And so we're going to use that as the segue into baseball talk real quick because the playoffs are still going on. We have the ALCS going on as well as the NLCS, and the Cleveland Indians are looking red hot. And I never thought I would say that sentence in my entire life. They are leading the Toronto Blue Jays in the ALCS right now 2-0 in that series. This Cleveland team has looked very strong. They just completely took over the Boston Red Sox in the ALDS, winning that series 3-0. So if they just get one more win, they're in the World Series. And that's going to be crazy considering Cavs did so well. They won the NBA championship over the summer. So, I mean, could this be the year for Cleveland minus the Browns?
The Browns
Maybe.
You picked them to win the Super Bowl yourself. I think we're going to have a Cleveland sweep.
A Cleveland sweep. Ugh. Well, another team that most people are looking at to break a drought are the Chicago Cubs. They are currently tied 1-1 with the Dodgers in the NLCS. That's a very intriguing matchup. Both of these teams are red hot, just like the Indians. But, right now the Indians look to be the favorite to get into the World Series. But can they win it all? That's the question. I mean, if you play against the Dodgers are tough to play against in the World Series. And then you have the Cubs, who are hungry this season. All the young guns are out with guns a-blazing, and they're just looking amazing. Between Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Miguel Montero was big the other night with a grand slam. That was huge for him. So, I mean, the teams that are left right now all look promising. Toronto's just not having a great time. They're struggling against the Indians. But that NLCS could be what changes the game for postseason baseball as of right now. So we'll see what happens with that. It'll be coming to a close soon. Hockey's back in full swing. We'll get to talking about that later on in the season. Once we get to the All-Star break, we'll talk about that because there's so many games that happen. But we might do a little talk about the first couple of weeks in hockey. So you have that to look forward to here on the Triple Play. But like we said, it's a bye week for Tennessee. Things are pretty mellow here on Rocky Top. People will be looking ahead to South Carolina on the 29th. That game is going to be at 7:15 in the evening. Most games against South Carolina.
Time.
It is, yeah. I feel like we've gotten used to having night games against South Carolina. It's kind of how it's been the past few years.
It's true.
So, I mean, it should be a good game. It'll be in Columbia, but we'll talk about that next week and do a preview on that. And we'll talk more about the SEC because things are crazy in college football right now, and especially in the Southeast. A lot of things are happening. But thank you for joining us this week right here on the Triple Play for TNJN.com. For Quinn Pilkey, I am Danielle Whaley. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.